What a beautiful joy to be with you all. It's always such a blessing and such a joy to come and be here in this beautiful summit. So I saw as we were coming in a basket that said questions for Satsang. So that's beautiful. And of course, we'll open it up to any questions that anyone has. But today is actually a really special day. And so I thought before we open it up for questions that we could have a little spiritual story time. Because you happen to be here this year at the holiday season. And of course, this is a very, very sacred land, a very sacred place. Every minute, every moment is incredibly holy, incredibly sacred, full of all of the potential and all of the possibility for awakening. You know, as we always remind people, obviously God is everywhere. Obviously your true self is everywhere. Therefore, obviously, awakening is possible everywhere. And this land is really, really special. I remember I've been here now 27 plus years. September was my 27th anniversary with Ma Ganga and Rishikesh. But I remember when I had been here for less than a year, in fact. I came in September 96, and it was the summer of 97. And I was back in Los Angeles, which is where I'm originally from. And I was back there on what was a very unexpected, actually, trip. When I moved to India, I didn't have any idea that Pujya Sadhviji, my guru, the head of PARMARTH NIKETAN, I had no idea that he was the type of international figure that it turns out he is. I had just known that he was this divine, extraordinary presence, and I wanted to continue to be in that divine presence. But as it turned out, he was a world-renowned leader, and one of the things that he led were these peace pilgrimages across America, across England, across Europe. And so they were having one the summer of 97, and so I got to be part of that. And I share this with you because we were back in Los Angeles for some programs on the peace pilgrimage. And I said to him as we were there, I said, you know, Swamiji, I know God is everywhere. But why is it that I feel the presence of God so much more in Rishikesh than I do in Los Angeles? And he said something, and now it's been, more than 26 years since this conversation, but it has stayed with me very, very deeply, and it's something I share frequently. He said, yes, God is everywhere. Just as much in Los Angeles, just as much in New York, just as much in London as in Rishikesh or anywhere. He said, but Ganga is Ganga. And that yes and is that which makes this area so powerful. Yes, God is everywhere. Yes, awakening, enlightenment, transformation is possible anywhere because whatever we need is in us. It's not that we're getting it from somewhere. It's not like the herbs of the Himalayas that we take in are that through which we have the awakening. It's within us. And Ganga is Ganga. And there's a reason that for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, this has been the land to which not only seekers, but the sages and the saints and the rishis and the yogis and the mystics have actually come to be. So we are all very blessed to be able to be here in this land. But this particular summit, at this particular time, happens to be serendipitously taking place right over very, very holy days in India, in the Hindu tradition. And day after tomorrow is Diwali. Today is a holiday called Dhanteras. And so I thought, well, we'll just begin with a little bit of fun spiritual storytelling. If it turns out you've heard these, just let me know. But if not, they're beautiful stories, of the culture and the tradition, and to kind of ground you in what's going on in India at this moment. But also, more importantly, they're stories with teachings for us. Because the holidays that we celebrate, whether they're holidays in the Hindu tradition, whether they're holidays in the Judeo-Christian traditions, holidays in any tradition, ultimately the point of a holiday is not just to commemorate, this many hundreds or thousands of years ago, this thing happened, but actually to enable ourselves in this moment to connect with, to benefit from, to dive into the power of, the presence of, the experience of whatever it is that may have happened hundreds or thousands of years ago. So when we celebrate Christmas, for example, it's not just, this is a, few thousand year later anniversary of Jesus Christ's birthday. It's a time where people who are of the Christian tradition actually connect with his presence and dive into his life and his teachings and his blessings, and in the same way. So today is Dhanteras, and the spiritual story of this, as you may have noticed, the Vedic stories interweave so much. So I won't go too far back into too many threads, or it'll take us all day. But there was a moment in time in which the forces of good, referred to as the devtas, not the gods. The gods is how they tend to be translated. It's not God as in the divine, but it's more and people sometimes refer to them as demigods, but what's half a god? That doesn't make any sense. The divine powers of goodness. That presence of the divine power in different ways, of goodness, of righteousness, of life, of sustainability. So the forces of goodness, the devtas, were fighting with the forces of darkness, the demons, who it turns out, of course, are actually relatives of each other, as we know, because dark and light are not separate. Each of us embodies aspects of all of this, and it's always a matter of which one we will allow to shine forth, which one we will anchor our thoughts, our words, our actions in. Or in the story of the two wolves, it's whichever one we feed, right? So the forces of goodness and the forces of darkness as relatives, always fighting each other. And the forces of darkness, though, always kept using not so kosher means to beat the forces of goodness. And so the forces of goodness end up going to the divine, the supreme, saying, these guys keep beating us through these really not so kosher means, and they keep killing us, and soon you're going to have nothing but forces of darkness in the world. We need some kind of a boon that's going to help us beat them. And so they're told, okay, if you churn the ocean, you will get the pot of the nectar of immortality. Because they said, you've got to give us some kind of power to become immortal, otherwise these bad guys just keep killing us off. So if you churn the ocean, you will find a pot of nectar of immortality. And then you will be immortal. But in order to unearth that from the ocean, you will need the help of your brothers, the demons, to do the churning. So they churn and they churn. Ultimately, by the way, the end of this churning story becomes the pot that is the Kumbh Mela. You may have heard of the Kumbh Mela as a huge spiritual, religious festival that takes place once every 12 years. The next one is in Jan-Feb of 2025. So mark your calendars now. It's going to be an extraordinary time to come. But we're going somewhere else with this story, which is while the churning is happening, first poison comes out. And this is really important because this happens in our lives. Remember that all of this is teachings for us. They're churning and they're churning, looking for this immortality. And first what comes out is poison. And this is something that happens in so many of our lives so frequently. We are trying to create, manifest, become, do something really good, something really beneficial, something really of light, of love. And so frequently we find as we are working hard to manifest something of light and love, poison comes. And it may be poison in the nature of other people who are trying to stop us for different reasons. It may be poison in the nature of seeming like the universe is sort of against us and nothing is working. It may be poison in the form of our own self-sabotage or our own doubts. Whatever it is, but it's very rare that immediately that manifestation of light and love just comes right away. There's always something we have to work through to clear first in order to actually be able to manifest that which we are looking to create. So in the same way, poison first comes, and of course no one wants to deal with the poison. Lord Shiva comes in and drinks the poison. Now, if he swallows it, it would destroy the creation within. But if he spits it out, then it destroys and harms people outside and the whole creation out. So he actually holds it in his neck, which is, there's a temple that is just up in the mountains from here. If you turned around and looked up, you would see a temple called the Nilkand Mahadev Temple. Nilkand literally means blue throat. So it said that after he drank the poison, he held it in his throat and came into the Himalayas to sit and meditate. Again, a beautiful teaching for us of when poison emerges in our lives, regardless of where it's from. If we swallow it, we kill ourselves. If not physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, we harm the very truth of who we are in the awareness and the expression of that. If I allow someone else's jealousy or ego or arrogance or illusion or anger to harm me, if I take in the poison that someone else spews at me in a variety of different ways, well, it festers inside me. It hurts me on the inside. It prevents me from recognizing and living in the divine truth of who I am. But if I spit it back out, as so many of us do, right? Someone treats us with anger or ego or illusion or meanness or whatever it may be, and most of us tend to just react and give it back to them. Well, then it harms them. Or maybe we don't take it back on them because maybe they turn out to be our boss or, someone in a position of power we don't want to anger. So we take it out on someone else, a family member, a child, a friend, and we harm them. So Lord Shiva's teaching is really beautiful here, which is don't swallow it, don't take it in. Don't let it harm your inner world, but don't spit it back on others either. Just meditate. Just meditate. Just come to the Himalayas and meditate. And allow that poison to just be. It's there. It's okay. It's not harming you. It's not harming the world. It's just coexisting as a presence. But your meditation is neutralizing it in an alchemical sort of way. So in any case, so Lord Shiva takes care of the poison. And after the poison, the nectar starts to come. The good things start to come. And many good things come, and I won't go there, or again, the story will take all day. But on the 13th good thing that emerges is Dhanvantari, who is the divine being of health and wellness, known as the father of Ayurveda. Dhanvantari is seen as the one who really brought the science of life, which is what Ayurveda means, to us. And he emerges carrying this pot of the nectar of immortality. Today on Dhanteras is the day that we celebrate, and this is why it's on the 13th day. Dhanteras literally means, Dhan means wealth. Teras is the 13th. So this is the 13th day in this moon cycle. And it's the day that we celebrate this divine being of health and wellness. Over the years, it got a little bit interestingly kind of, well, you could say warped, you could say expanded, depending on your viewpoint, for done to begin to mean physical wealth. So people on these days will celebrate with buying new things, gifting new things, jewels, gold, coin, metals, things like that. But ultimately, really what it means is that wealth of wellness, because it's the day of Dhanvantari. So it's the real wealth that comes from real wellness. And of course, we know that wellness is not just the absence of a physical injury or ailment, but it's a total wellness of our minds, our hearts, our bodies, and a total wellness of us as an individual with all of the world, all of creation. We are not separate from the creation. COVID made this so abundantly clear that if we really want to be healthy, not just in the I stay locked up in my house and order everything on Amazon type of health, but in an actual health that enables me to go outside of my house and into my community, I actually need my community to be healthy in order for me to stay healthy. I cannot be healthy in any way other than confined to the four walls of my house and my Amazon delivery person. I cannot be healthy in any way beyond that if my community's not healthy. Because their lack of health will very quickly infect me. And so in order for any of us to really be healthy, we need the world to also be healthy. And so when we speak about wellness, it's not just about, may I be free of bacterial infections or viral infections or fungal infections. May I be healthy. But it's may we, the collective we, be well. One of the things that Pujya Swamiji always says that I love so much in his play on with English words is, when I becomes we, then illness becomes wellness. We forsake all of our health in order to attain wealth. And then we try to use our wealth to buy back our health. We don't exercise, we don't eat right, we don't meditate, we don't do our yoga, we don't spend time deeply connecting with ourselves and our communities. But we make a lot of money. And then we use that money to go to really expensive spas where they feed us really good food and they make us meditate and do yoga and, come in community. And so on this day, it's a very powerful day to realize the power of wellness and how our wellness requires mind, brain, thoughts, heart, spirit, soul, community, Mother Earth, all of creation. Day after tomorrow is Diwali, which is the festival of lights. It's literally Deepavali. Deep is the oil lamps that we light are called Deepa or Diya, different ways of saying the same thing. And you'll see, I'm sure, that we'll have beautiful lamps lit here. It's a beautiful, beautiful day in which people line all of the pathways, their homes, offices, everywhere with these beautiful clay oil lamps. And it symbolizes the return of Lord Ram back to Ayodhya. So again, don't have time to go into the whole story of the Ramayana, but one of the really powerful core teachings of the Hindu tradition is the story of the Ramayana. The story of Lord Ram, of Hanuman, maybe you've heard of Hanuman, of this great epic of the embodiment of the divine, Ram, and whether you actually see him as an avatar of Vishnu, of the divine or not, is irrelevant. Even if you don't see him as God or divine or anything like that, he is the epitome of, the embodiment of goodness and righteousness. He's known as Maryada Purush, which is the being who is the embodiment of. He's the best brother and father and son and husband. Like anything you want to know how to do in life, people will say, do it like Ram did it. You're a husband, be a husband like Ram. You're a son, be a son like Ram. You're a father, be a father like Ram. You're a brother, be a brother like Ram. And fast forwarding through much of it, on the day that he is supposed to be coronated as king, his father is king of Ayodhya. And on the day that he's supposed to be coronated, instead of being coronated, he is sent off into the jungle for 14 years of exile, due to no fault of his own, due to a karmically intertwined other beautiful story of promises that the king had made to one of his wives, who was not the mother of Ram, but the mother of Ram's brother, who decided to cash in her promises on that day and told the king, "You are going to coronate my son Bharat instead of her son Ram as king. And you are going to exile Ram for 14 years into the forest." So Ram goes, and in the forest, he vanquishes lots of different demons and negative energies. Eventually, his wife is kidnapped. That's the whole story that we recite when we recite the story of the War of Lanka, where Hanuman comes in as the hero, and beautiful story. And eventually Ram is victorious. We celebrate that a couple of weeks ago during the time of Dashera after Navaratri. And after being victorious, he returns to Ayodhya. And the people of Ayodhya line the streets with lamps to welcome back their king. And so it's a really beautiful time as we're lighting lamps to actually ask yourself, well, what were the lamps originally lit for? Like, what is the meaning of this? And they were lit to welcome the divine back. And so again, regardless of your religion or culture or how you connect with the divine, take it as a beautiful opportunity to essentially welcome God back into your life. To just light a lamp of welcoming back that presence of God, whatever that means for you. With a name, without a name, with a form, without a form, totally irrelevant. But whatever that presence of the divine means to you, your true self, your higher self, spirit, source, consciousness, welcome it back. It's actually never gone anywhere, but your awareness has gone someplace, your attention has gone someplace. And so essentially you are welcoming your own attention back to the truth. You are welcoming your own focus, your own awareness back to the divine, back to spirit, back to source, back to consciousness, back to truth. And the light is that which enables us to see that divine, that spirit, that source, that consciousness, that love, that truth. So it's a very, very auspicious time to connect with that presence of the divine in any or all of the infinite possible ways that we connect with an infinite presence. Great. Is judgment a thought? Is it right or wrong? Judgment, in order to judge, I have to hold whatever I'm judging at least an arm's length. So if you said to me, how far away is that camera? I would need both of my eyes open, actually. I couldn't do it with one eye. We get depth of field only when I've got both eyes. They give us angles, proper angles. I would get visual cues that would come onto my retina and then get processed further in my brain that would enable me to figure out approximately how many feet away that camera is. Definitely couldn't do it with my eyes closed. It requires being able to look at and get visual input from an object. Similarly, whatever we are judging, whether it's something as unimportant and physically tangible as the presence of a camera, or whether it's something like whether I think someone is a nice person or not. Either way, it requires me to hold that object at an arm's length, either a visual arm's length or a mental arm's length. I have to think about it as separate from myself. I look at it, I examine it. Maybe I make lists of pros and cons or goods and bads. But I have to keep it separate from me, which means that judgment is essentially requiring us to engage in falsehood. It is requiring us to hold that which is not separate as though it were separate. If I'm going to judge you, I have to pretend that you and I are separate, because see, only then can I sit over here and judge you over there. And whether I'm judging what you look like, whether I'm judging what type of person I think you are, whatever it may be, I've got to hold you at a good arm's distance, separate from me, to be able to judge. So this is the trap of judgment. Now, usually the reason we judge is actually it's a defense mechanism. Judgment prevents me from having to let anyone or anything in too closely. Because remember, in order to judge, I have to hold you at an arm's length away. So if I'm judging you, you can be very sure I'm not opening my heart to you. Because judgment is a process of the thinking mind. Whether we use the word thought, whether we use the word analysis, whatever word we throw at it, absolutely, it is a process of thought. It is a process of our thinking mind. It is an action being engaged in by the thoughts deliberately. And it does not exist simultaneous to an open heart. And so if you find that you've got a tendency toward judgment, rather than trying to judge your judgment and say, oh my God, I'm such a bad person. Look, now I'm judging myself because, see, I judge everybody, so I'm not very spiritual. That means I'm a bad person. Instead of that, just ask yourself, what are you afraid of? I mean, that's the question for judgment, is what are you afraid of? If you didn't hold the world at an arm's length, what would happen? And we do the same thing with ourselves. We hold ourselves at an arm's length when we judge ourselves. And so we are holding ourselves up as an object to be judged, whether on the basis of what we look like, on the basis of our skills and abilities, on the basis of our success, by whatever definition we may have one. But we are objectifying ourselves out of ignorance. It's core ignorance. But it's done in order to prevent myself from actually deeply feeling and connecting. And so if you find that you're judging yourself, allow yourself just to drop into being. And if you find that you're judging others, allow yourself to open your heart. So rather than judging the judging, try to address whatever it is that is catalyzing the judging. And you'll find that automatically it dissipates. Yeah, beautiful. Yes. Great, great. So this is a perennial question. And a really important one, which is why it's perennial. It's one that I get very, very frequently in Satsang at PARMARTH each evening, because people come. You're not the first one to discover my God in this sacred place. I find not just peace, but I find deep meaning and awareness and connection. What happens when I go back? The what happens has two parts. One part is that which you can do while you're here, and the other part is that which you do when you go back. Now, while you're here, make sure that the experiences you're having are going as absolutely deep as possible. If it's just a superficial level peace that comes essentially from not having to get up and work, not having to do errands, not having people, yell at you all day about, is this done, is that done, come here, come do this, do that, then yeah, chances are you're going to lose that pretty soon when you go back. It becomes like a suntan. It goes away pretty quickly because you're no longer in that space. But that's why when you're here, what you need to do is actually take it deeper. Enable that which you are experiencing to really deeply touch and change who you are. Because if who you are changes, then when you go back, you're going to take that changed self back with you. Then it doesn't go away. Because then you are different. The way that I think about it is, if you were away somewhere and you met someone and you had a little bit of a fling, you had kind of a summer affair. It might be very nice, very enjoyable. You might have a fantastic couple of days or weeks. But when you get on a plane to go home, okay, I'm going back to my life and he or she is going back to their life, and that was really fun. I'll probably never see them again, but I'll have some nice memories, and end of story. But if while you were away, you met someone and actually fell in love, the simple fact that you were getting on a plane to go back to where you're from and that he or she was getting on a plane to go back to where they are from, that wouldn't change anything. Every bit of your mind would be focused on figuring out how you could be together. What do you need to change in your life, in his or her life, in order to be together? Because you are now in love. That has actually changed you. And so the key is to make sure that you're actually falling in love with yourself, not just having an affair with yourself. And that's something that you do while you're here. Take it as deep as you can. However deep you're going, go deeper. Let yourself let go of more, open more, drop more deeply into yourself. Think about it. When you fall in love, when you first meet someone, what do? Aside from the physical aspects, you stay awake all night, like you want to learn everything about each other. Oh, and what's your favorite color? And tell me about your childhood. And you want to know everything about each other. What are your dreams? What are your fears? What do you think about? You want to know everything you can about that person. This is a path of Jnana Yoga, a path of wisdom, a path of truth, a path of inquiry. And through that path of inquiry and wisdom, it becomes this path of bhakti, of love, of devotion. So as you're discovering more and more about your true self, you're falling in love more and more with that self. So let that happen while you are here. And then when you go back, adjustments have to be made. To think that adjustments won't have to be made is just illusory. If you were someone who drank a lot of alcohol or used a lot of drugs or spent a lot of evenings, just hanging out in bars or clubs trying to pick up members of the same or opposite sex or whatever it was, and you had a spiritual experience, you would do different things. And so you would need to plan on a purely practical, pragmatic, logistic level. Well, okay, what am I going to do with myself if I'm no longer spending every evening at a bar or at a club, if I'm not constantly thinking about picking up someone as a sexual partner? What am I going to do? And this is just logic. I mean, obviously, if you are now focused on different things, you're going to be doing different things. You're going to be thinking about different things. And what that may also mean is you need to find some new people to hang out with. Because if everyone you hang out with, if all they know how to do and all they want to do is go to bars and clubs and pick up sexual partners, you're going to need to figure out, where is my Sangha, my community, my people? And you don't need many, don't worry about it. One is great, 2 is a bonus. These days, online has actually really helped out, because for people, until you actually find people who physically live near enough to you to hang out a lot, there's always a community online you can connect with and stay connected. But you are going to have to think about, what are the things that you are going to actually do differently. You're going to want to create time in your life for practices that enable you to spend time with yourself. It's like if you fell in love with somebody and they picked up their life from wherever they were living and moved to live with you. Well, obviously, you'd clear some room in your schedule to spend time with them, right? I mean, could you imagine having this person that you fell in love with pack up his or her life and come to live with you? And you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm too busy. Yeah, see, Monday nights are the nights that I go out to the club with my friends, and Tuesday we go to the bar, and Wednesday we go out and pick up sexual partners. And they'd be like, hello, like, I've just moved here to be with you. You'd clear your schedule. In the same way, you need to clear some room in your schedule to be with yourself, to practice your practices. And so figure out how you're now gonna live your life. To me, one of the first things that happened, and the most sort of across the board pragmatic things that just happened, was, oh, I no longer have evening activities, because see, I get up really early in the morning and I hate being exhausted. It's not conducive to meditate when you are super exhausted. You just fall back asleep. Therefore, it's got to be something really, 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 really special, or really, really important to get me to do it in the night, because my morning practice is really, really important to me. And so you're going to have to just figure out these logistics, and that's something that I would do before you touch down. The airplane on the way back is a great time to put in some time. What is your daily schedule going to look like? What is your weekly schedule going to look like? What are the changes you're going to make? Get them down in writing before you land. And you'll do it because you know what this feels like. And you're going to keep wanting it. And you're going to keep looking for the path back. And so all you need to do, you don't need to create a whole new path. The path is there. You've created it already. All you need to do is periodically, remove the cobwebs, clear the path a little bit so that you can keep walking it. Beautiful. Other questions? Yes. Yeah. So, a crossroads in our path. If you look at anything in nature, there's seasons. And sometimes it's a 24-hour cycle of the moon. Sometimes it's a 365-day cycle. Sometimes it's a 28-day cycle. Sometimes it's seasonal. But there's all kinds of cycles in nature. And there's seasons. And I don't just mean winter, spring, autumn, but I mean moments, long moments, short moments of great productivity. Seasons in which the apple tree has so many apples on them that you just have to call all of the nearby school children to come and pick apples, because no matter how much apple pie you bake, you just cannot use all of the apples on the tree. Seasons in which you've got so many zucchinis that no matter how much zucchini bread you bake, you've still got extra zucchinis, and you just put out baskets at the grocery store that someone should please take your zucchinis. Seasons of great production. We are very literally productive, creating apples and zucchinis and whatever we are creating in our actual lives. And then there's seasons where the trees not only lose their apples, but lose their leaves entirely. Where there's just stillness on the branch. And then the snow falls, and then it's a white branch. But there's no production whatsoever. It's like the tree has gone into hibernation, essentially. Animals do it. Fields, anybody who's done any kind of agriculture knows that the only way to keep fields actually rich and fertile is to allow them to lie fallow for long periods of time, to just be still. Do not produce right now. Just be. This is a time right now, literally, as we enter the winter time, of that stillness. Nobody is planting anything right now. Nobody's planting seeds right now. Seeds don't sprout. Or they certainly don't sprout as well as they sprout in other seasons. If you're planting something now, it's a wintertime vegetable or something. There actually is an intelligence, a wisdom, a knowing in the universe. And all we have to do is allow ourselves to be open to it. And It's a knowing and an intelligence in which I have great faith. Nothing on earth is idle for long periods of time. Temporary idleness or temporary fallowness is always in service of the next season of growth. So the leaves that fall off the trees in the autumn actually become the soil for springtime blossoms. That field that is fallow is nourishing and nurturing itself so that it becomes the richest, most fertile field the next time that something is planted in it. It's only our human kind of post-industrial revolution, produce mind that's just gotten much more warped even with social media, where it's like, oh my God, I've got to not only produce something annually, but produce something every few hours so I can post about it. Like, oh my God, what are you going to post? I haven't actually done something today. Well, you better do something so you have something to post. So we've become all warped around this idea of better do something. Well, a lot of times, listening is the most important doing you can do. And what I would say to you is just have faith. If you come to a fork in the road, have a seat. Have a seat for a moment. There will come a sign. There will come a sign, and the sign may come from nature. You may see, oh, there's a big storm up ahead that way. All right, I'll go this way. It may come from, hearing the roar of a tiger that way. You're like, I think I'll go this way. It may come from a wise being who walks past you and says, oh, most definitely this is the path you want to go on. Or, oh, here's what's up ahead this way. Here's what's up ahead that way. And then it becomes very clear to you. But you don't have to rush. It's not a race to the finish line. And being still is very different from being idle. It's not a sin. We need to be able to listen. Otherwise, we end up running around like the metaphoric chicken with its head cut off. But we don't actually get anywhere. Mahatma Gandhi said one of my favorite quotes, which is, what's the point of going so fast when you're running in the wrong direction? I've also heard it translated as, what is the point of that fast speed which has no direction? So, same idea. But it's what so many of us do. And when there are moments where you do have to put one foot in front of the other in either direction, and they both seem equally good, to just accept the fact that, there may not be a wrong choice. A lot of us have this abundance of blessings in our lives where there really are so many right options. But this idea that somehow there is one that is meant to be the right one and every other one is somehow a mistake, that just isn't true at all. The rightness of a decision is much more based on how you respond to the decision, how you walk the path you've chosen. Much more important than which path you've chosen. So if you decide, all right, this is the way I'm going to start walking, beautiful, walk there. Walk mindfully, walk consciously, walk with compassion, walk with love. Walk with an open heart so that if along the path doors open signs come, signals come, that you hear them, that you respond to them. And they may tell you to change your path. They may tell you that this is exactly the right path. My God, I never thought of it, but wow, thank God I'm on this path. But the reason that we're here on planet Earth is not actually about whether we take this job or that job or marry this person or that person or live here or there or go to this university or that university. But it's actually about how we experience the truth of who we are as inseparable from the universe. And so whichever pathway you walk, make sure that that is your goal. And all paths will enable you to have that experience. Some may seem somewhat more conducive to the experience. Others may give you a slightly larger opportunity for challenge. But realize that your ultimate destination isn't about the physical venue that this path leads to or that path leads to. But the actual destination is an internal experience, which you can have walking any path. Yeah. Mm. Okay. So overcoming the fear of doing something that you know you're meant to do, and how did I overcome the fear of writing my book that took 20 plus years to... So two-part question. The first part, in general, how to overcome that fear, is with faith. And for me, the most powerful example of this is, I love these monkeys, by the way. Well, I love them. I'll digress for just a moment. I love them because they're such powerful teachers. At our International Yoga Festival, we put up tents, big tents to hold programs in addition to the halls we have. And one year I was teaching meditation in the large tent, and suddenly you hear the monkeys on the roof, and it's not a hard roof like this, it's just fabric. So you hear like, and people would look up, and you could see literally arms and tails hanging down through the slits in the fabric. And everybody got a good little giggle, and 2 minutes later, we're able to go back to the meditation. But about 3 or 4 minutes later, suddenly we heard bam, 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 bam. And it was the guard with a steel pipe beating the steel pole that holds the tent in place to scare off the monkeys from the roof. And there was no meditating at that point. I mean, you're sitting in a tent where the guard has got a steel rod hitting a steel pole. And it was just bam, bam. But it was such a perfect teaching because, as I shared with everyone there, I said, look, we speak about the monkey mind. It's exactly what our minds do. They jump all over the place. But we're usually able to bring them back. It's kind of a temporary diversion. It goes, oh, there's a tail, that's cute, we come back. Oh, there's a hand, we come back. But the moment that the internal guard starts with its go away, go away, go away, stop that, stop that, stop that, you're bad, then we no longer can meditate. That steals our meditation. And it's such a powerful teaching about meditation because when the thoughts jump all over the place, when we have those monkeys in our mind, it's so easy to allow the inner guard to come in that starts yelling at us and trying to scare away the thoughts and make them go away and just stop thinking and I'm bad at this. And that's when your meditation is over. But if you can just allow, monkeys in the mind. Okay, back to the breath. Another monkey. Back to the breath. A wagging tail. Back to the breath. And not let the internal guard come in with his stick. Even though he thinks he's doing you a favor by scaring off those thoughts. That's actually what steals your meditation. So anyway, I love the demonstration of the monkeys. But back to the fear, which is faith is the only way. And for me, the best way of thinking about it was I was sitting at my parents' condo complex in Los Angeles, in Santa Monica, where they've got a big pool. And it's, a communal pool for everybody who lives in the condo complex. And I saw something that I had seen many times, but this particular time it really hit me. And you see it a lot in these sorts of pools where you'll have a mother or father in the pool with their arms like this. And on the edge of the pool, you've got a little toddler with his little floaties on. And he's running up and down the edge of the pool, and the mom or dad in the pool is saying, jump, jump, it's okay, I'll catch you, jump. And the kid is like, and they run up and down, and and eventually something clicks, and they jump. No matter how scared they are, they jump. And of course they're caught. And the minute they're caught, something very beautiful happens all the time. The kid goes, again. And the fear is gone. But what enabled the child to jump was faith in the one whose arms were outstretched. And that's where faith is the answer to overcoming fear. You've got to jump. You know you've got to. You know that you are not meant to spend your life on the edge of the pool with your floaties on. But you've got to develop a relationship with the arms into which you are jumping so that you can overcome that fear. So that you can jump. And that's the beautiful spiritual practice, is getting to know the divine, the universe, yourself. So for me with writing this book, as you asked, it was more than 20 years. But it was a two-stage process. For the first many years, I had no interest in writing the book. People would say from the beginning, oh my God, you've got to write your book, right? I mean, 25-year-old, well-to-do, Jewish girl from LA, Stanford grad, PhD student, turns into a Hindu monastic spiritual leader. Like, it's a story. And I had all these people say, my God, you've got to write your story. Like, how did this happen? But it was very clear to me from the very beginning that my spiritual practice and life was about service. And that it wasn't about self-aggrandizement, that it wasn't about me as something. And for years and years and years and years, I just could not wrap my mind around a justification for the hundreds of hours that it would take to actually write the book. I thought, I've done a TED Talk, like you've got, 18 minutes of the story, that's enough, and no, I'm not going to spend the hundreds of hours that it would take to actually write the story, just as a fascinating story of American Jewish girl becomes, Hindu holy woman thing. But something started happening many years ago that brought me into phase 2, which was people started putting me on pedestals, sort of spiritual religious leadership pedestals of you are somehow higher than, purer than, better than, in the way that India and the East in general is very good with their gurus and teachers, and you are separate from, better than we are. And I found people would start to preface questions to me with things like, well, I know you would never think like this, but, or, well, I know you're too pure for anything like this, but. And I realized that not only was this absolutely untrue on every level, but it actually was really detrimental to their path. That by doing that to me, it was preventing them from the responsibility to step up to the plate of their own life, to realize and recognize their own divinity. That as long as they could say, oh, she's so much purer, higher, better than I am, maybe in my next life, that they were completely absolving themselves of any and all responsibility for this life. And I thought, I can't be party to this kind of deception and self-harm on the part of all these people anymore. I was clear from my own self that those projections were like not about me and not sticking to me. But I realized this is harmful for everyone else. And so I realized, they need to know the full story. And they need to know that in addition to knowing freedom and joy and peace and awakening and realization, or whatever words we throw at it, that I also know anger and pain and struggle and trauma and depression and addiction and yearning and desire and jealousy and all of that stuff that makes us feel somehow disqualified from grace. And that I needed them to have the full story. And I started to feel like people had only a very superficial understanding of the story. Now, it was a challenge for me because when you take vows of sannyas, theoretically your past is supposed to be over. A curtain drops. And so for years, I allowed myself to just permit this kind of superficial understanding of who I was by saying, well, anyway, I've taken sannyas, like I'm not supposed to go into story and narrative. But then I realized that it was detrimental to them. That it wasn't just that I was sparing them a good story, but that actually I was enabling deception. That there was sort of this vision of me as this like virgin angel who descended from the Stanford clouds onto Rishikesh. And that was just so untrue. And that I needed people to know the full story. But yeah, there was absolutely anxiety about it. Not enough, thankfully, to make me not do it. But I had people say to me in India, I sent the manuscript before it came out to 20, 30 close friends of mine and acquaintances who are New York Times best-selling authors or teachers or leaders, kind of people in the spiritual field. And I also sent it to a few in India as well who are different types of high-level leaders in India. And it was really interesting because from two different high-level leaders in India, I got basically the exact same feedback, which I only got from them and from no one else. Everyone else was effusive in their praise and support for it. But two of them said, "Are you really sure that you want to talk about all of that? Are you really sure that, like, especially you want to talk about having been sexually abused? Are you really sure? Because, you know, you've spent 25 years, at that time it was 25 years, in India. You've developed a very, very large and high platform of respect, of reverence, of the way people take you and see you. And this could really change how people think about you." And I thought about it, not in terms of actually like what I was going to do, but I just thought about the fact that this feedback was coming, which didn't really surprise me, but I realized my fear of losing that which I theoretically had accomplished in 25 years was nothing compared to my fear of not being true to myself. And that if I took out something that was so true simply because I was afraid about how people were going to think about me, that I would no longer know the woman who occupied my body. If the publishers came back and said, "You know, we think the story would be a lot stronger if you cut X, Y, and Z," that would be an editorial decision. But the idea that in order to somehow protect a reputation, I needed to not be true, it was unthinkable to me. But yeah, there was definitely a level of, all right, God, you gave me the experiences. You gave me the words that put this into the book. You've given me this position in Indian society. You know what you're doing. Figure it out. And that's the leap. That's the leap. And I have been beyond surprised in the most extraordinarily touched way to see the way that not only the Western audience, but even the very, very traditional Indian male religious leadership audience has actually come out in effusive support, which was something that I thought would never happen. The best I was hoping for was I wasn't going to be derobed, and that they weren't going to give my guru a really hard time for letting me do this. That level of support was something I never imagined. So just leap and just know that you're going to be caught, and that literally the universe just rises up when you leap. And I could sit with you all day, but I think our time is probably over. but it's been so, so beautiful. And have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Diwali. When does the summit end?
We end tomorrow.
Oh. So if by any chance any of you are not immediately rushing back off to your cities or countries, you are more than welcome to come down and join us for the beautiful Ganga Aarti on the banks of Ganga that we have every evening. You're welcome to come celebrate Diwali with us. You're, welcome to come down and have more satsang. And for those of you who are rushing back off to various cities and countries, just know that as we were speaking, it's in you, it's as you, it is you, and you carry it with you. And Ganga is Ganga. So keep coming back.